Hey everyone, how are you? I am doing well over here. I wanted to just check in and say hi. And even though the podcast is kind of formally done for now, I may post a video from time to time just with some thoughts, some musings, things that may be helpful for future people who are finding this channel, who are navigating their way through advanced yoga practices, who are on the journey of empowerment. And and this video was inspired by something I heard a while back in the Sai Shakti lineage of Swami Sri Kaleshwar, and a number of times as I've explored information in the lineage or heard people talking about Swami's teachings, I've also I've heard folks kind of make a statement of the kind that is something like, and I just don't know what that means, or, I don't know how that could be, sort of thing. So, so this is just a perspective, and and in anything I am sharing from my personal experience, from my soul, and from just a place of could this be helpful for someone? And it's never my intention to um, counter other people for the sake of just doing that. Like that, that's not my style, um, but sometimes, I think it's just helpful to share a perspective that someone might hear, and it might connect some dots for them. And so I'm not claiming to be right. I'm not claiming to be like all knowing or anything, but I heard something, and when I heard it, it connected dots for me. So what I heard was um, within the context of someone in the lineage talking about Hanuman. And I think it was around a time where some Hanuman mantras were being used. And so there was just this little moment of sharing a story about Hanuman from, Swami's teachings. And the story was relating to the idea that Hanuman was even above and beyond Shiva and Shakti. So, so Swami had said that, and someone was repeating this, and then had this moment of, but how could that even be, right? Like, how could that be a thing if we've been taught that Shiva and Shakti are the feminine and masculine aspects of God? So I think one thing that's helpful to keep in mind is that, and this again is from my perspective and from my memories, my knowing, my research, and so I think we have two things happening here. I think we have historical narrative about these beings who took on names like Hanuman, Shiva, Shakti, you know, Rama, like all these beings. And we have all these stories in ancient Indian literature about these beings. And these stories are like very physical in nature, right? Like, the stories of, the gods and goddesses going to war with, the asuras, and the, stories of Krishna's kingdom, going under, and that sort of stuff, right? Like we have so many stories that indicate there was very like physical stuff happening with these beings. And there is a lot of metaphor wrapped up in it. And the term Shiva and Shakti has continued forth and is used as terms for the feminine and masculine aspects of God. It's my belief, my understanding, that many of the ancient gods and goddesses on earth, some of whom maybe were named Shiva and Shakti, and then over time we just took those names as kind of symbolic in a way for the feminine and masculine aspects of God, because we're recognizing in these beings there's a divine union drama playing out. We're recognizing the different qualities they carry. So, so my belief is that many of these ancient gods and goddesses were powerful beings from elsewhere in our galaxy. They were other galaxy people interacting with humans, and we've got a lot of evidence for this today. And I encourage those who maybe are new to that topic to check out Paul Wallace's work. Paul Wallace is a former deacon of the Anglican Church in Australia. He's done incredible work to unpack biblical text specifically, and he's gone on to explore a lot of the other origin stories that exist throughout cultures on Earth. So Paul comes at it from the more Christian background and perspective, and through his understanding of the Bible, and through all of his theological training. He started questioning some things in the Bible. He started recognizing maybe there's some mistranslations here, and maybe when we look at, for instance, the word Elohim, which has typically been translated to mean the powerful one or God, we start to, when he looks at a different translation, he identified that this really should be a plural word instead of a singular word, meaning Elohim now translates to the powerful ones, and that starts to paint a very different picture about this drama that's playing out not only in the Old Testament in the Bible, but also in other literature around the planet, like the Vedas, like what we find in India. And so Shiva and Shakti were powerful beings for sure, but they were not the god and goddess, right? They are representations of the male and feminine aspect of God, just like we are as humans. They were just operating at a higher level of power. And these beings that were operating at a higher level of power, who were interacting with humans, were seen as gods and goddesses because our level of consciousness was so contracted and so limited at the time that we couldn't see that. We couldn't understand it. And also because some of these beings asserted their power over us, right? So we bowed to them and we worshiped them as gods and goddesses. So back to the Hanuman thing for a moment. If Shiva and Shakti, this version of Shiva and Shakti as powerful beings from somewhere else in our galaxy who had a reign here on Earth, if we think about them that way, and we think about Hanuman also being a powerful being, a monkey, being a hybrid human monkey, a humanoid, monkey type of being, we can start to maybe think a little differently about Swami's teaching around this, that Hanuman was above and beyond Shakti because Hanuman was of a higher order of ETs. Hanuman was actually, out of all of the ET groups that were present, that showed up, that have been around, Hanuman's group was operating at a higher level of unconditional love. And so that's my takeaway from this topic. That's what just immediately rung true for me when I heard this comment in the lineage a while back. And so I wanted to talk on it because I think, confronting, some of the aspects of beliefs that we're carrying that we can't quite understand is such important work for our evolution and for our transformation and for our ability to hold all of these aspects of consciousness that we need to hold. So, when I first connected with the Hanuman character, I had a moment of recognition and remembering, and I had this moment of this is not some God I'm praying to. This is not some God I'm connecting with. This is someone I've known. This is someone I've had lives with, in these other times. And so that was coming back to me. And same with the kingdom of Dwarka. And I'm getting huge chills now, like what that was about. And all these kingdoms, actually earlier this year, I stumbled upon a place in the US that is highly reminiscent of Hampi and some of the Monkey Kingdom areas in India. It's my belief and understanding that these kingdoms were worldwide, and while there may have been, like one established kingdom, right? Like in India, for instance, like a group of powerful beings may have established a kingdom there. There were also outposts around the world because these beings had the technology to fly. Like they were powerful. They had this incredible technology that, we're just like now remembering. And like even in the Vedas, the Vimanas, right, are depicted and talked about as these, spacecraft that these beings used. So, what we have in a lot of our ancient stories are, I think true historical narrative, but it's been wrapped up in our origin story as humans. It's been wrapped up with all this metaphor and symbology, and we've started to use some of those ancient stories as metaphor and archetypal, aspects of consciousness we can work with. So, when we think about the Parvati and Lakshmi and Hanuman and, Rama and all these different gods and goddesses that are in our religions and spirituality, we can pray to them as beings because they were. We can pray to them as souls and, enlist their help on our soul team, or we can think of them as now archetypal representations of consciousness that have been connected with this earth matrix that we are a part of. And we can start to work with those aspects of consciousness in a different way. So this, I think, is also an invitation to, examine like the prayers, examine, the ways in which we're connecting with these aspects of consciousness, and to maybe now like hold this larger perspective in mind as part of that process. I even think about this in relation to Ganesh, right? Like we've got some substantial evidence now that in our ancient history, like pre-flood times, that there was a lot of human animal like hybridization going on experimentally in some ways, and that yes, Ganesh, from these stories is like a product of Shiva and Shakti's divine union, kind of. You probably know the story, um, but if you like look at that story, like how does that make sense? Like in terms of a truly divine narrative that that informs, our reality. Like I think that's an interesting story of something that happened, and I think Ganesh has come to represent the idea of divine love, right? Because divine love is accessed, embodied, understood through divine union, either through two people or through divine union within ourselves. So, when I think about the Ganesh character, I love elephants. So there's something fun about that. But also, I'm just thinking about the divine love that is the product of divine union. And that's what that story is like really representing and symbolizing for us. And so, thinking about other galaxy people and going back to reread all these stories through that lens can give us, I think, just a whole new like perspective on our history, on our spiritual and religious teachings on this planet, and can help us just tease out the information that is appropriate and helpful for us on our journey. And it can help us, like leave to the side what maybe isn't as helpful for us, right? So, I think that's true with like all information on our planet. And And what I think is so fascinating about this planet is that we have developed these just really extraordinary mythologies, most of which are based in fact, but have just, been woven into these fantastical stories because we were operating at states of consciousness where we couldn't really hold our true history because it's traumatic and it's a little wild, to have had this interaction with all these powerful beings and to have, as a human race also once been, more powerful than we are today. We've been through a lot, and it's a lot to hold that, in your heart and in your consciousness, and to really like zoom out to see that big picture. And so I just invite us all to do that. I think it's time. I think it's important. I think it's not something that is about judging religion or beliefs that have been in place, but it's just about being willing to change our opinions and our minds when we're presented with new belief with new information, which then can help us form new beliefs if that feels right for us. So, I've always been a person that's wanted to um, be willing to change my mind, when I'm presented with new information and with information that really does connect some dots and help present, a bigger story. And so, I think we're at a point where we're really examining our human story and we're deciding like what's true for us and what's not true for us anymore. And what about these stories have actually left us in a really disempowered place? And what about them can we now integrate in a new way to allow us to become more empowered and to allow us to have a more fun, joyful experience of reality, truly. So I just offer that today because it's something that has been on my heart for a little while that I kind of wanted to speak to, and I just wanted to find the right way to do it and share that perspective. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. And if I have other things that kind of feel like they're wanting to be spoken to, I'll share more in the future. Bye for now.